Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I was making tacos.
Oh no, tacos have to come first, obviously.
No, no, not at all. Looks like we've got like 10 people in the waiting room. Here's Itzel, our interpreter. Hi, Itzel. How are
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. Nate
Awesome.
is presenting tonight. We are going to record both English and Spanish. I guess Zoom does that automatically now. I am not sure how many people we'll have who need Spanish interpretation. But we'll probably start out with like you doing like a language justice piece right at the top. And then
Hmm.
we'll probably let people in and give them a few minutes to get settled. And then
Perfect.
I go ahead and probably in the introduction ask people that if they have something they're gonna put in the chat to put it in English and in Spanish. But this
Okay.
the material is largely for confirmers who are largely US citizens. I don't know. What do you think, Nate?
Yeah, I mean, I don't. If um, what if I just do? If we have a question in the chat, I'll just read it out loud, and then you can translate it
Hmm.
itself, so we don't have to worry
That is
about.
perfect.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's perfect. As long as you read it out loud, then I'm going to, yeah, interpret everything you read out loud. So that should be good. And then, yeah, actually, that was all I was going to ask is that if you wanted me to do the introduction in Spanish and English at first, so I'll do that. And then also to confirm that um, the host can does have the globe icon ready just for when we are ready to do the interpretation, or to start the interpretation, that's all good to go.
oh, you're
And
muted, Jordan.
Sorry. Yes, I've got it all ready.
perfect. Awesome. Then I think everything sounds good on my end. I don't know if either of you have any questions for me.
I don't think so. Nate, do you need to be able to share your iPad screen?
I do, so that's why I'm having my Android device and my iPad join,
Cool.
so I can screen share from those. Um,
Cool. You've got it then. I'm not worried. Um, cool.
Though it's really weird seeing your face in three different screens. I'm not a big fan of it.
Oh, yeah, I believe that.
All right.
People are saying they're emailing me being like, I might be a few minutes late. And I'm like, it's okay, we're recording it, don't worry. Um, yeah. What do you I will definitely like stay here for a few minutes though. Nate, so like I'm trying to think if people have questions at the end, that'll be they can either email me or whatever is fine. Yeah, that's fine.
The game, okay. I can also share. Um, I can share one of my emails too if people have like a very specific digital security question.
Yeah, good point. Okay, cool. Whatever you feel comfortable.
Okay. Uh,
Cool, okay. Um, Great. Okay. Well, it looks like I have 32 people in the waiting room and they keep just coming in. So I guess I might as well just let them in.
let's do it.
Okay. It's the Nate show. Yeah, I'll change my name first. Admit all. Here they come.
Hello, friends.
Hello.
All right. Hi, folks. we are gonna let people kind of trickle in as it's just 6:01. But if we could have folks um introduce themselves in the chat. We're gonna do something real easy, like your name, your pronoun, what city you're calling in from or tuning in from, and your favorite color. Something real easy. No hard questions here yet. So again, for folks who are kind of trickling in, we're gonna do introduce yourself in the chat with your name, your pronoun, what city you're calling in from, and your favorite color. Great. Oh, I love to see people calling in from all sorts of places.
Mhm.
All right.
Montrose, Monmouth, Ancient.
All right. It is 6:02. So I am going to, let's really make sure we have our recording. Oh, still it's recording, so that's good. Um, yeah. All right. So I'm going to invite Itzel, our interpreter from the Colorado Community Language Cooperative, to share the language justice piece for us. Itzel, please.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name's Itzel, and I'll be the interpreter today. So we're going to do simultaneous interpretation for today's meeting from English to Spanish, Spanish to English. And like I mentioned, it's going to be simultaneous. So there's going to be no need for any consecutive or anything, any stops like that. But I do have some instructions to share for the simultaneous part. So I'll share some instructions in Spanish and then in English. Hola, muy buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Itzel. Estoy aquí para proporcionar los servicios de interpretación simultánea. Entonces va a ser interpretación simultánea, que significa que no será consecutiva, así que no va a haber necesidad de pausar entre oraciones, pero sí tengo instrucciones que compartir por si les gustaría usar la interpretación simultánea. Entonces, en unos momentos vamos a encender la interpretación simultánea, así que aún no está encendida. Ya que la enciendamos, van a poder ver un icono terraquial o un icono de un mundo en la parte inferior de su pantalla. Cuando seleccionen este icono que dice interpretación, les va a aparecer el canal de inglés o el canal de español. Y este será el idioma en el que les gustaría escuchar y participar durante la sesión. Entonces es importante que cada persona que desee la interpretación simultánea elija un canal inglés o español para que cuando yo cambie de un idioma a otro, usted pueda seguir escuchando en el idioma que eligió originalmente. Un recordatorio que estoy aquí porque los organizadores de este evento se han comprometido con la justicia del lenguaje. Así que significa que queremos que todos puedan participar y escuchar en el idioma de su corazón, que es el idioma en el que nos sentimos más cómodos, así que siéntanse libres de usar cualquier idioma inglés o español que ustedes prefieran y yo lo interpretaré simultáneamente al otro idioma. Entonces, si en algún momento tienen alguna pregunta, alguna duda, por favor déjenme saber en el chat o con su micrófono, yo estoy feliz de ayudarles. Y sí, déjenme saber si tienen preguntas. Gracias. All right, so in a few moments, we will turn on the simultaneous interpretation. And once we do, you will see a globe icon at the bottom of your screen. If you don't see it right at the bottom of your screen, it'll be under the More button with the three dots, so that's usually all the way to the right of your screen. So like I said, it's not on yet, but once I finish the instructions, that's when we will turn it on. So once you find that globe icon that says interpretation, click on it and choose either the English or the Spanish channel. And this will be the language that you would like to participate and listen during the session. It's important for everyone who's not bilingual in Spanish and English to choose either one channel so that when I switch from one language to the other, you will continue listening in the language that you originally chose. And a reminder that I'm here because the organizers of this event have made a commitment to language justice, so we want to ensure that everyone is able to listen and be heard in the language of their hearts, which is the language that we're most comfortable with. So feel free to use whichever language you prefer, English or Spanish, and I will simultaneously interpret it to the other language. And if you have any questions at any moment, please let me know in the chat or with your mic. I'm happy to help. And I think that's all. So we are good to start the interpretation.
Thank you so much, Itzel. We're so happy to have you. I'm starting interpretation. Should we test it real fast?
Yeah. Is it working for everyone? If it is working for you, give me the silliest face you can on your camera. Oh,
Great.
come on. All right.
Great. So, okay. Thank you so much. Hey, folks. So welcome here. Please go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat with your name, your pronoun, your city you're calling from, and your favorite color. Please select your language in the under the language selection. And just so everyone knows, we are recording this session so that we can use it for people who aren't able to make it today. We are recording, and yeah, my name is Jordan Garcia. I work at the American Friends Service Committee, and we're one of the founders of the Colorado Rapid Response Network, and we're so glad to have you all here. Um, Nate Stone is a friend and colleague, and also a fellow a dispatcher for the Colorado Rapid Response Network, and he's going to tell you a whole lot more about himself and everything too. But just wanted to invite you all to take a deep breath. It has been a uh, very intense couple of weeks. And the fact that you are all here today is an incredible gift. And I really want to just take that moment to say thank you for being here and for doing what you can. With a lot of gratitude for each of you. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Nate, and I'm going to make his devices hosts. Okay, good. Take it away, Nate.
Okie dokie. Hi, everybody. So my name's Nate Stone. Like Jordan said, I'm a dispatcher. I'm located in Denver, Colorado. My favorite color is sky blue, which maybe someone said in the chat, but it went by really fast. I'm doing this training because my day job is working for an organization called the National Digital Inclusion Alliance, where I teach folks how to teach digital skills. Before that, I worked for the Denver Public Library for 15 years, teaching technology classes and building curriculum there. All that said, this is a big room, right? There's 67 grown adults in here who all have a lot of experience. So what we're aiming to do today is to give you a basic rundown of the core principles you need to do to start thinking about digital security and privacy. We'll talk about why that's important. We'll talk about doing a simple risk assessment and talk about some simple steps you can take. But I'm sure some of you also have things to share too. I'd like to encourage you to please use the chat if you have something you'd like to say. I will read it out loud so our interpreter can then share it with the rest of the group. And we'll try to answer your questions in time. I may have to like save some questions for the end. But let's get started. So I even have fancy slides. Actually here, maybe we'll do this. We'll do this silly little like Muppet guy in front of the slides. You ready? All right. So let's talk about digital privacy and security. I think given the number of folks that are here, I don't have to do a lot of convincing to you about why this is an important issue. But we're going to do, like I said, some basic risk assessment. We're going to talk about everyone's favorite things, which are passwords, which are like sort of the basics of what the first step in making sure we're secure. We'll talk about how to lock down the devices you use, because a lot of the confirmers and the local confirmer groups use Signal. We'll talk about steps you can make to make sure you're using Signal correctly, and we'll end with some behavioral tips. but let's start with the a good way to start any sort of discussion about security, um, which is talking through some basic risk assessment. So when we are attempting to figure out what it is, how risky something is, and how much effort we need to take to protect ourselves, there's a couple core questions that all of us have to ask. Um, so the first is, right, what do I want to protect? Um, since you all are confirmers, what is it on your device that you would, using the chat, uh, what do you think it is we need to be able to protect? Photos, contacts of vulnerable people, PII or personally identifiable information, right? So there's a lot of good, right? There's a lot of we have photos, um, strategy discussions, CORRN reports, contact info. Um, so there's that information that we have from working as confirmers of documenting things where we may have a photo of an impacted person sitting on our device. We may have taken down information about them. We also have all of each other's contact information that we want to keep safe, right? Um, I'd like to think the second question is relatively simple, right? We want to protect it from ICE. How bad are the consequences if we fail, and how likely is that it will need to protect it? Are often the questions that are the hardest to answer without a full understanding of sort of the situation that we're all in, right? Um, so I'm gonna come back to this because I think it's important to be really clear on what the risk environment looks like for all of us. Um, right now, ICE, as I'm sure most of you are aware, ICE has had a monumental increase in its budget, and it's using a lot of that money to buy some very expensive and sophisticated spyware. I'm going to put a couple links in the chat just as some examples. Um, they're using this. It's become increasingly obvious over the last couple of months that they're using this. They're using the software not just for deportations, which they've been doing for years. Um, it was under Obama that DHS built a database that has the information of about 3/4 of all the adults in the United States that they built entirely without warrants, mostly using commercially available data. It's become even more the tools that they are currently spending their money on allow for even more fine pinpointing of people. And a lot more interception. And I think the thing that we really want to focus on is that there are it's become very clear that ICE is using this not only to try to track people down to detain them, but also to identify activists who are pushing back against their terror in their neighborhoods. So it is extremely likely that we need to protect the information that we have on our devices. And the consequences if we fail, someone already brought up in the chat, RICO charges against activists, right? This regime has shown it is 100% willing to go after people for getting in their way. So the consequences could be a fine, could be jail time, it could be something else. So answering those first four gets us to the question about how much trouble are we willing to go through to prevent these? RICO charges are when they charge you for acting as part of a conspiracy, a criminal conspiracy. So the problem with any class I do about security ever is that it is always a trade-off, right? And the trade-off is convenience. So the more convenient something is, the least secure it is, the less secure it is. The more secure something is, that convenience drops off pretty precipitously, right? So what we're going to talk about today, there are going to be a range of options I'm going to lay out to you. I'm going to flag the ones that I think you absolutely need to take. There are some that we can recommend you take, but all of us need to be further over here. It's going to take you longer to log into your cell phone. For that, I apologize. But it is not my fault. I think you should blame Donald Trump for it. So there is going to be some trade-off. There's going to be some friction happening with some of the changes that I'm going to recommend. But I want you to prepare yourself for that. I want to highlight also this last statement that security is a team sport, right? Because the last question we want to ask when we're doing a risk assessment is, who are our allies? And our allies are everyone in this room, right? Our allies are everyone in Colorado who loves and protects their neighbors and wants to keep them safe. But when we are talking about digital security in particular, I need to flag the folks who start a conversation by saying, well, I don't have anything to hide. I'm already on a list. It's fine. Because those people are extremely dangerous and being very selfish, because we're not talking about just you, right? We are talking about keeping all of us safe. And I would really, really like you to help me keep my family safe. And I promise to do the best to keep your family safe, right? So this is only going to work if we all do it together. Sorry to pull off my dad voice at everyone, but that's where we're at. So let's start with the most basic, right? I know everyone loves talking about passwords, and I'm gonna give you an out in that I will fully acknowledge that passwords are a system that are designed to be easy for computers to break and hard for humans to remember. It is the worst possible system we could have designed for security, right? What I want you to do is think about your three most important accounts, right? Because we all have a gajillion different accounts. But think of sort of your core ones, right? That email that you use to reset everything else. Your bank account, that sort of thing, right? And start small by making sure that those are super, super secure. When we are using a password, we want to make sure it's long, it's memorable, that it's a bare minimum of 12 characters. It includes numbers and symbols. And I will break from some advice that is out there by saying, yes, it is great if it is a random string of letters and numbers. But that is, again, really hard for humans to remember. So we often recommend using something like passphrases, right? Which are a string of random words stuck together with maybe a number or two in there, right? My personal passphrase for my Gmail account is 36 characters long. It takes a ridiculous amount of time to type it in, but it is super, super secure. If you need help doing that, the Electronic Frontier Foundation has something called Diceware, which creates, you get to roll 5 dice. It'll give you 5 words. You can string them together to make a super random, super hard to crack password. The other thing that is really important is that you not include any personal info, because all of that is easily found by strolling through your Facebook feed. In the when I worked in the library, about 90% of my job was helping people reset their passwords. And for a lot of folks, you could scroll through their Facebook feed, find the name of their granddaughter, and put that in, and it would 5 times out of 10 it would be the password they used, right? So things that are easy to find out about you and things that would give extra information about you to someone who got your password, we want to avoid. So nothing about your address, your birth date, or any of your relatives' addresses or birth dates. If you want to check to see if your password has already been compromised, this is one of many sites, but this is the one I prefer. It's called Have I Been Pwned? You can enter an email address, and it will tell you if it has already been shown up in any data breaches. If your email address has not shows up in here and you have not changed your password after one of these breaches, you need to do so immediately because it's going to be available for anyone to find. In an ideal world, you want to have a unique password for every single account that you have. And I know you're saying, Nate, that is the worst thing in the world because I have 300 accounts and I do not want to remember a separate password for each of my accounts. I will help you with a tool that can do that in just a little bit. We're going to talk about password managers in just a second, Daniel. So Daniel asked in the chat, in general, do you think password managers are helpful or create a higher risk? And then his second question was, should we change our most important passwords on a routine basis? I would recommend, so the interesting thing, the recommendation used to be that you change your password every 60 days. When research was actually done on how effective that was, what often happened was that people started creating shorter and shorter passwords because they were changing it so often and needed to remember it, and ended up being far less secure than just picking something that's super long, hard to break and guess, and then keeping that until it's shown that it's been compromised. So I wouldn't worry about changing your passwords on a routine basis. I would recommend checking to see if your password has been compromised on a routine basis, at least quarterly. So, and then we're also going to recommend that you do not share accounts, particularly with folks outside your immediate family, and to turn on two-factor authentication, right? So two-factor is that when you sign in, you give a password and it texts you a code, or you have to hit something on your phone to turn it on, right? What that does is provide an extra layer of protection for you in case your password is compromised. So anything that gives us an extra layer of protection, we want to add on top. Sukru asked in the chat that sometimes websites have their own passwords that are randomly generated. Can we use them? If a website is generating a password for you, I would definitely not use that. But if you're using a password manager, I would recommend using that. So there's a spectrum of risk here, right? We do not want to use 123 password for everything, right? We get to different passwords and maybe we have just different passwords for our key accounts, but we're keeping them in our brain. It's okay to write down passwords. You just cannot keep them on your computer, right? So please don't put a Post-it note with your super secure password on your device. Not super helpful. If you're going to write them down, I'd recommend making up a secret key. So say that's like coming up with one word that you do not write down, but is part of every password. So say my secret key is golden. And when I write down the password my password for my Gmail is cassowary pants magician golden 42. I just leave off golden when I write it down, but I know that I need to add that. So if someone finds that written down password, I'm not compromised because they don't have my secret key. The best choice of all is going to be to use a password manager, which is a tool that you only have to remember one password for, and then it automatically generates secure passwords for all your other accounts and logs you in for those after you put in that secure password. We do want to think about, so if you're on a couple good password managers when we're looking for them, right? You want to look at something that is open source and goes through its own security audits. Some recommendations for that are Bitwarden or 1Password. If you are super hardcore and want to keep a password manager just on your device, there is a option called KeepPass, which you can use. I would not recommend Google Password Manager because by default, it is very convenient to have it save your passwords in your browser, but it does not save those passwords in an encrypted form, meaning that it's not scrambled. So if someone got access to your device, they would have access to your, it would be easy for them to find your passwords without having to know your, the password that unlocks your account. So using a separate tool like Bitwarden or 1Pass would be great. Right, the way they look, if y'all can see, hold up, let me see, let me share my screen here. Because you should be able to see this bit in the corner. Right, so when I do this, I have a single password I need to remember. That's very long. Hold on. And jeez. I've never typed in my password with like 95 people watching me. It's interesting. What that does is it'll show me the password that I have for my account that I'm currently on, right? And I can use this autofill to just pull it in. But it saves a super secure version of it automatically creates these like 36 character long, completely random passwords that are far more secure than anything I'll be ever be able to remember. Most password managers have a free version that lets you demo it out. If you can pay for the paid version, that will allow you to use it on multiple devices. So another really nice thing about password managers is I can use it on my laptop, my phone, my iPad, and it syncs all my passwords across all of those. If you use Apple devices, that Apple keychain is a password manager, and it saves those passwords with encryption. So that is also safe to use. Just make sure to take some steps to secure your Apple device that we'll talk about in a little bit when we talk about devices. Let me just double check the chat. LastPass is okay. It's only had one breach. Like there is a risk with any password manager that someone can get access to the information, but it is encrypted both on their end and on your end. So even if someone were to get access to their servers, there's nothing they could do. It would be very, very difficult for them to do anything with the information they get. So in general, they are worth any potential security trade-offs because they make everything else so much more secure. Just as a side note, consumer, if you're looking to shop around for a password manager, Consumer Reports, which you can get free with a Denver Public Library subscription, does reviews of password managers, and the EFF does a great guide on how to pick a password manager, which I'll share in just a little bit too. All right. Any last questions about passwords before we move on? I know that's the least exciting thing that anyone can talk about at 6:30 on a weekday. But they are the keys to your digital life, right? And if we don't have those secure, then we can't bother with anything else. All right. Let's talk about devices. um, I have a couple key things that I really need you to keep in mind when we are doing when we're talking about devices. And in this section, we're talking about computers, we're talking about laptops, we're talking about desktops, we're talking about your phone. So number one, I know it's a pain in the butt, but every time that device says you have an update, you need to run it as soon as humanly possible. It would be ideal to just turn on automatic updates all the time. Those updates cover up holes in security that leave your devices vulnerable. So we want to make sure that those are running all of the time. Secondly, you want to make sure your device is encrypted. So what encryption means is that um, the information is scrambled, right? And it can only be unscrambled with a password that only you know. Um, that that keeps someone who gets your device from just opening it up and reading everything on it, unless they get that password from you, right? So we want to make sure that encryption is on our device. I'm going to share in the chat here a little sheet I made. If someone could just give me like a thumbs up in the chat to make sure that they can actually open that up. Are we good? Delightful. So that will give you some guidance on how to turn on encryption on your device. A lot of devices, some devices come with encryption automatically on, but it's always good to verify. But we really want to make sure that that encryption doesn't matter if it's really easy to get into your device, right? And device manufacturers are really good at making it super easy to log into our devices, right? They make it easy to set up a really short pin or to use our thumbprint on our phone. I'm going to ask you to turn those off to set up your device to use a password, or at the bare minimum, a pin that is 8 to 10 characters long, instead of a 4-digit pin or using biometrics. Because the thing is that biometrics, right? The face recognition, the fingerprints can be forced. So if you're ever in an interaction with someone who wants to get into your device, they can simply press your thumb against your phone and open it up. They can't press your phone against your head to get your password out, luckily. So changing that setting is super important. I'd like to just show you really quickly who this on just as an example on an Android device, what that looks like. Um, ooh, I get to watch myself. So on an Android device, right? We want to head to settings. I can look for unlock for how my device is unlocked. And device unlock shows up under security and privacy settings. And for my screen lock, I want to change that from from a PIN to a password. And under fingerprints, I want to make sure that uh, that I have fingerprints. If I still have fingerprints used to turn things on. Oh, you're not actually seeing anything on my screen, are you? It's not showing you that. Why didn't someone say something? All right. Let me see. Hold up.
We saw it partway through, Nate, and then it like stopped.
All right.
Just went black halfway through showing us.
It's probably because I have advanced security on. Let's see if I can do better on the Apple one. More share screen. All right. Our folks in general, how many folks are on iPhones? How many folks are on Android? Would you mind just like saying in the chat what kind of device you use? iPhone, Android. Looks like we're about half and half. All right. So again, in my settings, right? So this is actually on an iPad. I don't own two phones, but iOS is similar enough on iPads and iPhones, and it's a similar idea. The under my privacy and security settings on my iPhone, here's where I can find things like my passkeys, right? Where's my screen lock? Lock camera. Lock the mode. No. Pin? All right, we're not gonna show you anything is what we're gonna show. Doing great. I'm doing super great. Autofill on passwords, dictionary fonts. Well, the nice thing is that I linked it in your in the thing I shared with you about how to change your PIN. We want to make sure that that PIN is that we are using a password instead of a PIN or biometrics, right? We also want to make sure our screen turns off and locks in a relatively short amount of time. Again, we want to picture like a worst case scenario where we're interacting with a law enforcement officer. They knock a phone out of our hands. We want it to lock itself before they have the chance to pick it up and open it up and look at our contacts. I also want to ask you to make sure that you are disabling lock screen notifications. So this means, particularly in Signal, and we'll show you this, I'll show you this in the Signal part, that we want to make sure that even when your screen is locked, right, notifications will pop up. And sometimes if we don't set our settings right, people will be able to see the entire message as well as who sent that message on the lock screen, which defeats the purpose of setting a lock screen. So we want to make sure that those are turned off. For any device, using a better browser than the one that is built into it is also going to help minimize our footprint. A lot of the new tools that ICE has bought track folks off of commercially available location data, which is leaked by both websites that we visit as well as the apps we install. Using a browser that is built with a privacy focus first, like Firefox or Vivaldi, or in very extreme situations, if you're trying to stay absolutely private, the Tor browser. DuckDuckGo seems okay. I would like to read more about how it works and how it's built. But switching your default search engine to DuckDuckGo is also a great option. So we want to use a browser that helps trim down how much information we're sharing with folks. At this point, like if you're like 90% of the world, you're probably using Chrome. And at this point, Chrome is essentially spyware for Google. And Google has made it very clear which side they are on. Um, so using a switching to something like Firefox, and then making sure you have extensions installed that help those browsers block even more. So for example, in Firefox, if I look for my extensions and themes, I've installed an extension called Privacy Badger, which is made by again the Electronic Frontier Foundation that blocks hidden trackers. I also have uBlock Origin, which blocks ads from loading. It is the only thing that makes most websites usable or tolerable. But using something like Privacy Badger on top of those other ones would be great. A lot of those, a lot of that commercially available location data is leaked by apps that we have installed, often that are available for free, because when something is free, we are paying for it by giving up our data to the person who made that. So you want to make sure that you are looking through your app list on your device on a regular basis, and removing any you do not need, and also checking the permissions that those apps have asked for to make sure that they're not asking for anything weird. Safari is okay. I would really Safari is decent, but as a general practice of trying to spread your data, not locking all of your data into one place would be great. Kim asked in the chat, how about erasing your browser history daily in terms of being tracked? So erasing your browser history is good for stopping folks who get your device afterwards from telling what is happening. The same with incognito mode. That doesn't necessarily stop those cookies from getting or to incognito mode. It doesn't necessarily stop you from getting tracked around the web. So it's not just advertisers have gotten really tricky. It's not just if you have heard of cookies before, right? Cookies are just little bits of code that a website will download to your computer that identify who you are when you access the site, what you did on it. And then those cookies can often be used to track your movement from site to site. Like Facebook Meta is particularly notorious for this. Folks got wise to that and started shutting down cookies. The new exciting thing is browser fingerprinting, which means that every browser has a unique set of settings and it comes from a unique place. And advertisers have figured out how to use that to figure out who you are without using those cookies as well. Some browsers like Brave has some anti-fingerprinting measures built into it, Firefox as well. Using it in incognito mode will also help. It is like, for instance, there's a browser you can get just for it only works on mobile devices made by Firefox called Firefox Focus that is always in incognito mode and just resets itself at the end of every session after you close it. And that can be also a great way of sort of masking some of your motion around the web. I'm going to try again I really want to show you how to check on what on how to check on the permissions that you are sharing. So let's look at I'm going to try this one more time. Share entire screen. Okay. Great. So I'm on my Android now, right? When I go into my settings, there's a couple different ways I can find this. I prefer to go look for the security and privacy option. When I'm looking in there, I can see my app security. Nope, sorry. Privacy controls in my permission manager. So sorry, that was again privacy controls, permission manager. This will show all the permissions that are available on my individual device, right? So I can look and see what are these 20 apps that have access to my my location. I want to make sure at a bare minimum that something has it allowed only while in use. But for the vast majority of apps, right, I want to be able to just say, don't allow. It will give you a warning that things won't work as designed, and that's okay because it was designed to track you. So turning it off shuts that down. So you want to go through this and make sure that things have that there's nothing suspicious in there that is leaking information about you, and that as many things as possible are set on your location is not allowed at all. We also want to make sure that we're checking who has access to our camera, who has access to our microphone, because all of these things can also be used to track you as well. Safe driving apps from your car insurance company. I'm the wrong person to ask about that because I don't use those on principle. So I would not if there's a way out of using that, I would not use that without a heavy looking really intently through their privacy policy about what they are doing with that data and who they are selling it to. Let's stop share here. Great. We want to make sure that so we're going to double check our app permissions. We're going to make sure that everything we don't use or need is no longer there. This is not if you are the kind of person who does what's called sideloading apps, where you're installing things outside of the official app stores. And if you don't know what that means, that's fine. That means you don't have to worry about it. But if you are sideloading apps, please don't do that on a device where you're doing anything secure, because those are very hard things to verify where they've come from and what exactly they're doing on your phone. This last point is a recommendation. not an absolute necessity, but it makes it a lot easier. The biggest leakers of your location data are often the social media apps that we use. So your Facebook and your Instagram and things like that. Using them in a browser on your phone instead of installing the app can help stop that data from leaking as well. These are these top three here are for those who are in a higher security risk, right? So turning off any apps that give voice control over your phone so that someone can do things with your phone remotely. Disabling the mic, camera, Bluetooth, and Wi-Fi when not needed. That is good practice to do in going into any situation where you're worried about security in general. But these are not doable for a lot of folks. Or not necessary for a lot of folks. I would highly recommend everyone go through your Wi-Fi networks. So everyone has those saved Wi-Fi networks on your phone. Go through and clean those out, right? Except for ones that you actively use. And then make sure you're turning off the setting that enables automatic connections to Wi-Fi networks. And this is partially because some of the recent purchase data out of ICE has shown that they're investing in cell phone in signal interception towers to intercept signals for Wi-Fi networks and for cell phone networks. So we want to make sure that is harder for them to do. If you look at that tip sheet I gave you, it also has there's a link on there to show you how to delete your advertising ID from your phone. So every time you use you install something and it says we collect anonymous data or anonymized data about you, right? About your behavior. What it is often referring to is that it collects your advertising ID and uses that to track what you are doing in that app or across the web. But that advertising ID is very, very easy to tie back to you as an individual. And each device that you use that connects to the internet has a unique advertising ID. And you can delete it. You can turn it off. So I would encourage you to follow the steps that are in that tip sheet and go through and delete that off of your device. And then it is good practice just in general to use antivirus as well. A couple good options, a couple good free options are Avast, AVG, and Avira. Kathy asked in the chat, can you talk about how to keep lists of activists or targeted individuals safe? Is there software that is more secure than others? Yeah, let's talk about that. Yes, let's talk about that. I touch that on that specifically in a future session. So we'll get to that future section. So we'll get to that in just a minute. All right. So specifically around phones, there are there are modes in both Android and iPhone which are specifically designed to keep devices secure for people in high risk situations. They were designed for folks in like human rights activists and journalists in dangerous regimes. I recommend that the dispatchers on the core network use lockdown mode and advanced protection. And again, that tip sheet has links on how to do that. It shuts down certain features of your phone, so it does make your phone a little harder to use, but it makes it far, far more secure. It makes it way more difficult for you to be phished, for you to connect to those phantom networks that can intercept signals. So I don't, given what we know, it seems like an extreme step to recommend to confirmers right now. but I wanted to show it as something that you can investigate. VPNs are great. So Kim asked in the chat, how about VPNs? So a VPN is a virtual private network. What it is a piece of software you run on your device that essentially creates a tunnel for your in between your device and where you're trying to connect to, that masks your activity, because no matter how much we lock down our protection from advertising, from the cookies we save on our devices, our ISP, our internet service provider, our cell phone provider can still see all that traffic, right? So they still know where we're going. A VPN protects you from someone being able to see any of that traffic there. The really important thing to keep in mind about VPNs is that you are entrusting all of your internet traffic. You're essentially opening up everything you do on the web to the provider of that VPN. So it is extremely important that you research who you use as a VPN. The Mozilla Foundation, the people who make Firefox, have a VPN that tests well on security and privacy. There's another one that the name is escaping me that is also a good recommendation that I can share in the chat in just a sec as soon as my brain restarts. So those are great if you want an extra level of security, particularly if you're ever using public Wi-Fi. A VPN is a fantastic tool to have to keep yourself safe. I do want to throw out, so one of the things that that ICE is invested in is a really sophisticated Israeli spyware that sits on people's phones. And essentially allows people to take full control of it. Do I think that any of us will be targeted? I don't currently, but I do want you to, so the steps you would take to prepare for that would for sure be to turn on lockdown mode or advanced protection. But I do want to raise some red flags. If you are seeing really sudden decreased performance on any of your devices, if you're seeing the phone and mic turning on or off without you turning them on or off, if you're suddenly seeing unfamiliar apps or files you do not recognize, those are all potential red flags that you may have spyware on, and you should immediately take action to reset and wipe that device. Again, I want to make sure that I'm just gonna, this last point here, just driving home again, turn off the biometric logins, switch to a password on your phone, especially. But yeah, people in the chat throughout, NordVPN is consistently rated as positive. Proton VPN also is decent on security from what I understand. And Elizabeth asked in the chat, do you know anything about Upscrolled? And I do not know anything about Upscrolled. So I'll have to look that up. Bitdefender is Charlotte asked about Bitdefender as a antivirus that is okay too. Let's talk about Signal, since that is the majority of the tool that we're using for the majority of our time communicating as confirmers, right? At least within our local chats. So I just want to start with a reminder that the way that encryption works, the way that like Signal works to do end-to-end encryption to make sure that no one can read those messages, it only works if both parties, if both ends are using Signal. So if you're using Signal to communicate to your buddy who's using Google Chat, that is not going to be a secure message. It is going to be just a standard text message, right? So if we're sending information we want to be super secure, we want to make sure we're keeping it entirely inside Signal. We want to turn off those message preview notifications, and I can show you how to do that now. I might be able to. Let me see if I can do. It's because I turned on screen protection. Hold on one second. Copy indicate screen security. There it goes. Okay. Inside my settings here, under notifications, we want to find show. And your three options are on the notification screen, it'll show name and message, name only, or no name and message. I want to put that on no name or message, because I want you to imagine someone having your phone, the Signal chat popping off, even though it's locked, and just names popping up on that notification screen that they're writing down, right? So show we want set to no name or message. I'm going to encourage you in your settings to look at privacy. We want to turn on incognito keyboard, which keeps it is good practice just in general to look at the keyboard that you are using on your device to make sure you're using at least the stock Android or stock iPhone one. Custom keyboards are notorious for leaking a lot of data and selling your usage data to other people. This setting turns on the request that the keyboard not keep any information about what you're typing in. It's not a guarantee that your keyboard will actually do it unless you're using one of the stock keyboards. The screen security setting is a good one in that it blocks screenshots inside the app, and also blacks it out if someone tries to record your screen. Like that is why you could not see my screen earlier. Was that setting was on. It also blacks it out like when you're scrolling in between apps so people can't inadvertently look at it. I'd also encourage you to set a default disappearing time for new chats, particularly inside confirmer chats. So disappearing messages will just delete chats after a certain amount of time. It's really easy to forget that you've included information in a chat 3 months ago. But know that if someone gets your phone, they will trawl through all that information. So the most secure thing is just to delete it off of there. And then I do want to encourage you to make sure that under account that you have registration lock on. When you set up Signal, it required you to set a little pin, right? And that little like a reminder probably pops up to set a pin. If not, you may have turned off this pin reminder setting. Registration lock keeps someone from trying to set up a Signal account on another phone using your account without your PIN, right? So it's a way to make sure that no one spoofs your Signal account and tries to pretend to be you on another chat. All right. The other setting, oh, sorry, that's one I missed. There's a setting to under apps. There inside Signal. There's also a setting that says to generate link previews, and that's the setting that is when you put a link in a chat, it'll create an automatic preview of what that looks like. When you do that, that sends information to that website. So we want to turn that off because that can sometimes leak who is sharing that link and where multiple, if for instance you share a link in a Signal chat and multiple people click on it, that can show that data shows up that the link was showed across multiple accounts in multiple locations. So we want to turn that off for maximum security. I would also encourage you to turn on the screen lock feature. That just means that Signal, as soon as you turn out of Signal, it locks it until you unlock it with a pin or a biometric thing. But that just keeps someone from getting into it without another step. If you want to maintain, to try to get as close to anonymous as you can on Signal, you can use it without your real name or photo. Turn on the username feature, and there's also an option to hide your phone number as well if you want to do that, which means that no one can find you by phone number. They'll have to look for your username instead. Oh, so Amy asked in the chat, are the settings for Signal for Apple in your download? The settings that I just showed you here are going to be almost identical in the Apple one. Let me verify that, and if not, I'll ask Jordan to send out. I'll write up something and have Jordan send it out too. Clara asked in the chat, should people change their names on Signal to abbreviations or something else? And yes, it's a recommendation that you're not like using your full name on Signal. But there is so just like a reminder that there is no technical fix to security because it is people using technology. So all of the encryption and the security that's built into Signal, in the end, if the person on the other end of your chat gets what you're sending, they can still screenshot it, even if you set disappearing messages or anything else, right? Screen protect only works on your device, not on someone else's device. So that means we want to make sure that when we are sending information, even in Signal, that we don't say anything that you wouldn't want read in court, right? We also want to make sure that when we are adding people to the chat, ideally we are vetting them. Well, not even ideally. We are vetting them when we're adding them to our chat. There are the best way to do that is in real life. The second best way to do that is from a trusted referral, right? So if we have a trusting relationship with someone already in the chat and they refer someone else to us, that can also be another way of helping vet people. One brings up in the chat, admin in regional CORRN chats, please vet people. That means if you're the admin in the chat too, right? I'd highly recommend making sure in the chat settings that you are looking at. Amy asked to get the settings again in an email or a download, and we can definitely do that. For any given chat, when you open it up, let me share this with folks. Well, actually, I don't want to share any of my chats with you because this is being recorded. If you open up one of your chats and tap on the top of the chat, right, with the name of the chat, then open up the chat settings. Um, yeah. Um, and then in that, what I would encourage you to do is not use the group link option to add people to a group chat, because links can be shared with whoever. And that doesn't mean that that you necessarily get approval before they join the chat, right? You want to make sure that only the admin can approve people to be added by the chat. As Mozart said, is in the chat, don't assume that just because they want to join your Signal chat that they are confirmers. We have folks in Minnesota and Chicago and LA have all seen active efforts by ICE DHS to infiltrate Signal networks and group chats. So we just want to be we want to be thoughtful as we add people to these group chats. We're not going to go deep in this, but just assume anything you post on social media is public. Again, if you use it in a browser instead of installing the app, you're going to leak less data that can be used against you. And then some broader sort of behavior to think about, right? I want you to think about how we can, as you are working on CORRN stuff, the most secure is to talk in person. But we want to keep CORRN discussions in secure channels as much as possible and in one channel, right? Because the easiest way to slip up on security is by having a discussion by email and Signal and WhatsApp and all these other things, right? So pick one, lock it down as much as you can and secure it. If you are sharing documents with other folks in your group, doing things like, I don't know what you're doing, tracking license plates and things like that. Consider an option via, consider something besides Google Docs. CryptPad is a free alternative. It's run out of France. It's an end-to-end encrypted. Proton is also an option out of Sweden, I believe. No, Switzerland. Anyway, it's out of Europe with much better data privacy laws than we do. And again, end-to-end encrypted as well. I want to make sure that you are logging out of things when you are done. Yay, Clara loves CryptPad. CryptPad's pretty great. You want to make sure you are logging out of things when you are done, right? So if I leave my browser logged into the CORRN hotline that dispatchers use, and someone else gets my device, right? They're logged into it there. So we just want to be really cautious that anything sensitive we are logging out of. And then I didn't mean to freak people out about the talk about spyware, but the kind of ironic thing is that the most effective deterrent to this sort of commercial grade spyware that ICE is invested in is simply rebooting your device. Those things need this spyware needs persistence. It needs to stay running on your device. And most of them are tripped up by you simply turning your things on and off. I'm shocked at the number of folks who just never turn their phones on or off. But please just try to reboot it once a day. And that is just good practice to make sure that you have nothing malignant running in the background. There is, again, there's no magic app or trick to fix everything or to keep you absolutely safe, right? We have seen that that US tech is actively on the wrong side in this particular struggle. So the more we can rely on tools that aren't produced in the US and are subject to better data laws than what we have here, the better. But I really wanted to end with the idea, because so many folks sort of enter this subject with the hope that I'm gonna give you the one thing that you need to do to stay safe. The one app you need to install and everything will be fine. And there is no technology doesn't keep us safe, right? Tech won't save us, community will, right? So building the trust inside your confirmer groups, finding chances to meet in real life so you can put faces to those names in the chat so that you have someone to be responsive to and to 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 trust, right? That is what's going to keep us safe, not antivirus. We have a little bit of time for some Q&A. Let's double check in the chat. Palantir. Yes. Do folks have any questions? Let's see. I could tell folks about Graphene OS. So Ben asked in the chat, could you tell folks about Graphene OS? Graphene is a whole separate operating system that you can install on a computer, or sorry, on a phone. It is super hardcore. It's meant for like absolute security. It also involves a level of technical sophistication that some folks, that I think a lot of us aren't at. But thank you for bringing it up in the chat. I think it is a good option. Kristen brings up the reminder about keeping activist contact info safe. I do. Action Network. So I'm sure we've all like filled out registration forms for all kinds of things recently. I do think we need to start thinking about how often we are asking people to add their names to another digital list of information, and if that is absolutely necessary for us to do the organizing we need to do in our community. That's like one more data point that someone may have access to that we don't need to have, right? Clint asked, do we ever recommend using burner phones? There have been folks have reported, there have been some folks recommending using, especially as ICE has gotten more aggressive, using burner phones or just digital cameras to record ICE activity instead of taking your individual device to when you're confirming. I think that's difficult because you also want to stay in communication with like a dispatcher or with the rest of your team. I don't think I'm in a place to make a recommendation for that because I haven't lived through the kind of occupation that Minneapolis has. And I think that's something we're gonna have to decide as a community is sort of a best practice. The calls done to CORRN are not encrypted. Those are sent out as SMS, so that is not encrypted. That platform is sort of like a weak point. To be totally honest, at least in terms of the phone communication. But that is also why we are very careful about who we communicate with. Alyssa brings up, I know TikTok just got sold. TikTok just got sold, and I suddenly got a message that someone was trying to verify my email address and giving me one-time codes. How do I know if they got an account set up? That is fascinating. I don't know, Alyssa. Let's talk afterwards because I think it's I I do not know. I do know that TikTok's the data policy that changed when they got sold is terrifying, because they are collecting a whole lot more than they used to before. Larry asks, is it good practice to turn off your phone while doing confirmer work and record with an alternate device? Um, I don't have a recommendation on that. I would love to hear from what other people think. Um, I think what you need to make sure is that your device is as hard as possible to get into in case it is confiscated. Um, but I think the way we have structured our response network necessitates having some communication with the rest of the network, right? So we have to find the right balance there. Um, so the answer is I don't know on that one. Again, that's a discussion we should have as a community. Karen asked, maybe I missed this, but in general, what about email? If you're using end-to-end encrypted email like Proton, um, then that could be a channel for communication. But in general, if you were talking about CORRN to other folks who are also part of CORRN, trying to limit that to Signal would be ideal. Kim asks, can you comment on Alexa and Ring and how they automatically opt in to sharing its surveillance info to law enforcement? Yeah, so uh, if you have a Ring camera, please don't. Please, they are narcs for the police. They share huge amounts of data to law enforcement, often without warrants. Um, Alexa, the Amazon's data policies, to the surprise of absolutely no one, are absolutely appalling. And it takes a lot of effort to figure out how to turn off the settings that allegedly delete your recorded interactions with Alexa. Um, I think uh, I think both of those are just good to avoid in general. Um, Clara asks alternatives for conference call. Does Jitsi work? I think Jitsi does work. It is my experience has been just that it is a little bit laggier than some other options. But again, I think we wanna think through like what it is we're communicating. Um, this conversation we are having here doesn't uh, doesn't reveal a lot about the work we do that no one would not already know, right? Um, so the inconvenience of teaching everyone a second platform um, gets even more exciting. Jitsi is fine. Jitsi totally works. It is great. Uh, someone asked, oh, myself asked. Um, Someone asked if we should change our names on Signal, how I know who I'm talking to, how can I trust them if I don't know who they are? I think the idea, and I'd love to hear from some of the regional admins about this. Part of the idea is that regional groups are also meeting in person in real life, um, so that you can put a face to those names, and that's how you can trust them. Um, Larry asks how secure is Zoom. Zoom can be relatively secure. It is not encrypted in the same way that Jitsi is. And Zoom, and unless you're very careful about your Zoom settings, they also often will mine it for training their new AI tool like everyone else is, which is not my favorite either. That was a lot, friends. Yeah, thank you. I think I may have actually kept you longer than we originally promised. We're making the recording available after this in case you need to refer to it. We'll also resend out the tip sheet. I'll write up those signal tips again and make sure they're on the tip sheet as well. If you want to everyone to reach out, you can reach me at Nate76 at proton.me. So if you have any questions there, uh, thank you all for participating and for being patient with my silly screen sharing. And I'll see you out there, friends.